Hi, I'm Disiwanyeleti. I'm an indigenous healer through my bloodline with the calling of Istunya Sedlozi, and I channel guided messages for the collective self-healing, understanding, and growth. On this podcast, I focus on full moon and new moon readings, astrological transits, seasonal energy readings and updates, meditations, and reflections to help decolonize your mind and anything else I feel called to share. These will all rotate weekly, shared every Wednesday, and I hope to connect you closer towards yourself and allow space for expansion and alignment. This specific episode is highlighting the karmic shift we're currently in and the importance of decolonizing one's mind. It's kind of like the introduction to the Decolonizing One's Mind, quote-unquote series. I wanted to start off by making a reference to a TikTok that I made in August, I think, 2023, just stating the fact that the patriarchy is dismantling and the society that we're in is currently collapsing. And I just wanted to preface by, highlighting the key points and themes that I had mentioned in the post, because I kind of want to tie it into where we're at now and also how it ties into decolonizing your mind and what it is to decolonize your mind. Also, just as a disclaimer, anything that I say and all the other information that I'm stating is all derived from the spirit realm, anything that I've seen or received from my guides, as well as from astrology, putting together the pieces, the patterns there, and also numerology. So, as I previously said, our society is currently collapsing and the patriarchy is dismantling. This was starting to be in process in around mid-2023, and it's all related to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that is happening next year, late February, which I will go into a bit, which is still in me referencing this TikTok that I made. But I was just kind of stating that we live in a wounded masculine society where we're always acting out of fear and aggression instead of out of love. And it's us being avoidant and resistant to the better things in life and the deeper part of ourselves too. And that collectively we deny ourselves vulnerability and thus causing issues in interpersonal relationships. I emphasize that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and because of that we have both the divine masculine and the divine feminine energy within ourselves for harmony in our systems, and that obviously plants and other inanimate objects on this earth have the divine masculine and feminine energy within them as well. It's just yin and yang within nature. And the divine masculine is action-based. It's like speaking for yourself, having confidence and setting good boundaries. It just helps us thrive on earth and plays a fundamental role. Whereas the divine feminine is trusting and knowing yourself, trusting your intuition, tapping into ancient wisdom. It's being nurturing in interpersonal relationships, but also relationship with yourself, and just feeling emotionally and spiritually balanced and feeling a wholeness. A sense of universal wholeness and feeling how infinite you are. It's about being in a state of allowing, flowing, feeling, receiving harmony, and it brings you into your power, and that's it both they balance each other well, yin and yang, and they both benefit us in harmony. When I say both, I mean the divine feminine and divine masculine, and obviously they're just universal energy and just don't particularly have gender. It's not related to gender. But now collectively our divine feminine is in lack, and the wounded masculine is what is in excess and about wanting to have power over things and others. And again, like I previously said, being avoidant and resistant to the deeper part of ourselves and the better things in life and just things that fuel us. And in contrast with the balance, it would be about the power of self and the actualization of self and remembering of self. The patriarchy and colonization, because they go hand in hand, stripped us, and when I say us, I mean minorities across all boards, being women, the LGBTQ plus community, people of colour, those with disabilities, stripped us of our innate intuitive power, and also the acknowledgement that the divine feminine is our connection to ourselves, to our higher selves, our connection to the divine, to the universe, to each other. Stripped us also of our awareness of our power. And I just mean innate power. That we're all great, that we all have intuition, we're actually able to heal ourselves and others. We have power to our highest good and seeing beyond the physical. And instilled fear and shame and guilt around your connection to those minority groups that fought for our liberation today. I think we always see like those people as so brave and with such great innate power. And I think it's so important to acknowledge that you've not only accumulated that pain and trauma, but you've also accumulated that power, their power, and you're not in absence of that. And I'll elaborate on this in a little bit, but yeah, just that the current patriarchal system is falling apart. And I had also said that these were my exact words: we will be in a lot of external chaos across all boards and structures for the next 2.5 years. There will be casualties because those that thrive off of the power of the patriarchy are trying to grip onto it, and that our society is aching. But when there is aching, there's always healing, and you always get worse before you get better. Now, I say 2.5 years because I highlighted also that the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is happening in late February 2026. And this exact conjunction between the planets Saturn and Neptune occurs once every 36 to 37 years, and the last time it happened was in 1989 to 1990. And when you think about historically what events were happening during that time, the Cold War ended in 1989, and then the apartheid structure was also in the process of slowly dismantling, and obviously ended in 1994. So when Saturn and Neptune are in conjunction, and also the build-up towards it, there will always be a collapse of some type of structure. Saturn is a planet of karma, and it's about discipline, responsibility, restrictions, ambition, karma, and realism. Neptune in astrology is the planet of idealism, inspiration, spirituality, and it's about fate, intuition, and the psychic within us, the psychic energy, illusionment, deeper inner healing, things that make sense, and idealism just in general. And so this conjunction is like giving structure versus spirituality, and it's bringing and merging the imbalance between the divine feminine and divine masculine for collective unity and harmony. Neptune wants like freedom, transcendence. Saturn wants discipline and practicality. So hence the heavy clash that was happening then and obviously like now, and just amplified a lot more with the energy of this year, which I'll also go into in a tiny little bit. But one last little bit from this TikTok that I made, and that I said that there will be casualties and the chaos and violence and conflict and heavy illness, which is obviously internal misalignment and this coming into alignment, and the collapse of the current workspace system and etc. Just a lot of the structures and the systems that weren't working for the general collective, but we're just starting to fall apart, and we're starting to see it like properly happen now in like real time. Also, something I didn't actually mention at the time is that this, like the patriarchal influence in our society, has roots to imperialism and colonization. obviously. And so we can see this, the imperialism and the colonization, like elements also be affected within the societal collapse. And I actually documented some patterns that I've noticed ever since. For example, like how women, especially within like 2023, women were starting to speak more out about like their marriages and just their relationship to the patriarchy in general, like more than ever, especially on like social media, and the pain attached to the patriarchy. But yet in contrast, more men wanted to be like more traditional than ever, and we're starting to instill a lot more toxic masculinity everywhere. And obviously this was starting off in 2023, not to say that it never ever ever previously happened, but it just became so big. It became like a crucial movement, and it's at its peak even now more than ever. And it's ironic that you see those that feel they perhaps quote unquote benefit from the patriarchy trying to grapple with it collapsing, trying to tighten the grip on it. It's this awareness of freedom of choice for women, freedom of autonomy, freedom of being and existing. And with that awareness, with action, comes the dissolution of that system. And it's already in full swing. Other patterns I was documenting was, obviously large number of countries in the West going into recession, and yet still trying to control former colonial colonies. And through all of that, government systems falling apart like worldwide, and like civilians attempting to overthrow or rather reject control, all the systems that they've been so used to accepting. I kind of see it as like a decluttering. I think it's apparent that this can be seen as like a renewal of consciousness, like collectively, and like blatantly seeing who and what doesn't want harmony and would rather seek to control, or rather to separate. We see currently like also how this is playing out like in South Africa or in the US, for example, as well. But going back to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, I just want to clarify that this is when two planets are very close to each other in distance, and they're energetically reflecting a conflict of the themes they represent. And so taking into consideration that obviously nothing exists on its own, and it's all interconnected, and our planets operate in like an entire solar system altogether. So, I mean, like the same way that the moon affects the tides and affects our sleep. And so because of the intensity of this astrological alignment, which I've like seen in the spirit realm of how it's displayed in the physical, the energy of the karmic shift it brings will be like obviously building still throughout the year up until it occurs, and a little after the conjunction separates, and thus the energy and the purpose of it integrates. And so to further add on, this conjunction is like happening in Aries, the sign of beginnings and initiation, with anything astrology based, like starting, and like it's always going to be leading and starting with Aries, always representing number one. So this in itself is a reset. It's like an energetic purge of what's not needed within society and for like well-being, and like bringing it to light. And obviously there will be like those extreme polarities as well, and like can come with discomfort, like as the density picks up more and more. And also because Neptune enters Aries this year for the first time in 129 years, and so this impacts heavily like the desire, control of your experience, control within government, control collectively. Anyways, so to tie it into the general energy of like this year, this obviously does add some spiciness to it, because astrologically speaking, we have Mars energy jolting things into action, like emphasizing and energizing themes like aggression and war and ambition and willpower and courage, which is what Mars represents. And Mars is the ruling planet of 2025 according to the numerology of this year. Now, going into numerology as well, 2025 is like a year of like emphasizing completion. It's like highlighting, releasing all patterns for new cycles for the purpose of individual and collective growth, of enlightenment, and like serving as a reminder of like collective consciousness and how interconnected we are. I don't know, it's kind of giving a revolution. There's just like so many like rare and like important transits that are also like aligning with these themes and with the karmic shift that we're in and everything, specifically within this year. Like obviously, like I said, with Neptune entering Aries this year for the first time in 129 years, and we've also got Uranus changing signs for the first time in 7 years, and then we've got Jupiter entering Cancer, the sign of its exaltation, experiencing its highest expression. Saturn also entered Aries for the first time in 29 years, recently in May. So all these like planetary energies are also like aligning with what's going on and how it's happening. Now, in terms of decolonizing our minds, it's important to acknowledge that with colonization, through generations of trauma, torture, indoctrination, our ability to acknowledge our greatness was stripped away. Colonization thrived on separation and inferiority versus superiority. The systems that were set up as a result and still exist in our society set the foundation to instill conditionings and belief systems that ensure we don't necessarily question our greatness, even individually, and our highest potential. And so we reconcile that with deprogramming. And I mean this mentally, as in getting to a state of higher awareness of yourself, of the conditionings, the societal conditionings, of the belief systems that hold us back from connecting to ourselves, connecting to our intuition, and just finding true fulfillment. And I think it also just like knowing that you're an alchemist and the only one that can save you is yourself. From an indigenous standpoint and in the context of South Africa, in general, any type of practices and teachings around wellness and well-being and fulfillment and connection to intuition and oneness within community was all just demonized, and it was used as means of control. The demonization was used as means of control, mental and spiritual control, a state of mental inferiority. Because when you take away someone's ability to see and feel their greatness, to see and feel their potential, when you take away and demonize their tools that they use for individual and collective healing, internal peace, just well-being, then that is how you're able to control and instill fear and loss of the self. Because it ensures that you don't have an internal foundation within yourself. And the demonization of connecting to oneself and even their higher self and their spirituality and their guides. The purpose was to uproot fear. Fear of punishment, fear of liberation, fear of expansion, fear of freedom. Everything that is beneficial to our well-being is seen as a threat by colonial and capitalistic structures, of which are obviously in the process of collapsing now. But because of that, it's very, very important for you to remember your roots and remember your power. Especially because you may be free, but mentally you're not. Especially because decolonizing your mind is about bringing you into a mental state of abundance and not scarcity. because you literally have everything you need within you always. And I hope to further unravel decolonizing your mind in future episodes. You carry so much power and so much greatness. Always remember that.